Would you like to play some football?
Welcome to another edition of Gridiron The Gospel, a faith and college football podcast. I'm George Schroeder. He's Dean and Sarah. We are coming to you on Sunday evening, and you're listening to this on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And if you're watching us on YouTube, one of us is in, what is that, the Florida room, Dean? Is that what that is? The Florida room in the back of the house?
Actually, and if you see on the shelf all the way behind me, that's all football helmets.
Yeah. And so he's got the good backdrop. Usually I'm in my office. Today I am in the back bedroom, which functions as a home office as well of our house, as our older son Christopher and I are going to be bachelors this week, as Shannon's on the road for her job. And so I didn't want to take him up to the church and just have him hanging.
Yeah, the boys going to be together. I like it.
That's right. Lots of hot dogs, man. Lots of hot dogs, pizzas, burgers. Whatever it takes.
We have a joke in our house. When Chrissy goes out of town, we call the National Guard to come in. So hope you guys survive.
Well, hopefully, right. So week 11, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and someone will correct us if we're both wrong, but nobody got fired today. And again, we're recording Sunday night. To my knowledge, did anybody get fired today? Did I miss somebody?
I have not heard yet. There's no breaking news that I know of anywhere.
There always could be.
One thing that you said that made me upset was you said it's week 11, which means it is winding down. It does go by really fast.
It does. Well, as we recorded, it's November 9th. Yesterday was November 8th, right? So you've got the 16th, the 23rd, the 30th. You got 3 more weeks of regular season, then you got the conference title games, and it's hard to believe. So, but a great Saturday, right? A great Saturday. Indiana, Penn State did everything they could do, and Indiana went all the way down the field in the final minute and scored on a fantastic drive, a fantastic pass, and a fantastic catch with, 30 seconds left to overcome Penn State's upset bid. Indiana is 9-0. Oregon outslugs Iowa in the rain at Kinnick in Iowa City. Field goal in the final seconds. It was a very Big Ten matchup. So welcome, Oregon, to the Big Ten. And it looks like you can play that kind of football. Texas Tech dominates BYU. So many places we could go. So many other things we need to talk about. Where do you want to go first?
I like to talk about the college football playoff ranking.
Let's do it.
And there's certain things I'm really struggling with the insistence on Texas. I mean, I think people are forgetting, or at least conveniently forgetting, that they lost to a terrible Florida team. And with 2 losses, to have one of those, not a Notre Dame loss last year where you lose 1 game, Northern Illinois, which is a bad loss, then you keep winning. They lost they already have 1 loss, and they lost to Florida. And so don't get fooled, folks out there, by the logo or by Tim Tebow in 2000 or whatever, or Danny Werfel in 96. This is not your father's Gator team. And as a Miami Hurricane fan, of course, I'm a little upset because Miami and Texas have the same record, yet they have one common opponent. Miami beat the Gators, and Texas lost to the Gators. And for some reason, that doesn't seem to matter. So that to me is just kind of, I don't know, that just bothers me. Get them out of there.
Yeah, I have no issue with you wanting Miami to be ranked more highly. Now, it looks like, some of this feels like it's a what have you done for me lately type of thing, and they think Miami's trending in the wrong direction. I would say a couple things. We don't know that. I realize that's what happened last year. We don't know that. You're not supposed to project. And also, they are supposed to be doing what the poll voters for years haven't done. They're supposed to vote not based on what did you do lately. They're supposed to vote based on the entirety of the season, your entire body of work, to use one of those college football playoff terms we've all grown to know and love. And really, the only one that matters, obviously, is at the end. But they do these fake rankings it started last Tuesday as we're recording again on Sunday the 9th. It started right before, but it feels like to me they're really riding what's happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks and not what happened earlier in the year. And I know teams grow and change, and so that would be the deal. I'm a little surprised you picked on Texas there, because the obvious match with Miami is how in the world is Notre Dame at 10, 8 spots ahead of Miami?
They're so far apart.
With the same record.
So far apart. Yeah, same record, and here's Miami winning head-to-head. I mean, it takes me back to the BCS days when Miami played Florida State. Miami beat Florida State. This is in October. Miami won the rest of their games and had 1 loss early in the season to Washington. Florida State won the rest of their games. And the last week of the season, Florida State jumps Miami in the BCS rankings. It's not like Miami had some like November 18th loss at the very end of the year. So there's always just that kind of, I'm just one of those old school guys that think if you're going to talk body of work, head to head has to matter. Then if you don't have head to head, look to common opponents. Especially they're at two different teams from different conferences. And then also Oregon showed me a lot in that Iowa game. I bet Dan Lanning secretly loves that kind of game, to see the guys come out and have to play physical in the rain like that. He just seems like the kind of guy who would love that. But people want to criticize Oregon for, oh, you struggled against Iowa. They went on the road to a ranked team. And then you have Indiana goes to Penn State. Yes, Penn State's terrible this year, but Penn State had Allers out, but Penn State was preseason, a team that was supposed to people thought go to the national championship game, and Indiana goes there and wins the game. So Indiana is not allowed to do that. They're getting clobbered, but Ole Miss can win by 3 against Washington State in Oxford. Nobody says a word. It's wild to me just what's going on out there. But to me, Indiana showed that they're tough and can handle it. Oregon showed they're tough and can handle it. I continue to be amazed by Alabama. Just what a different team than we saw the first week of the year, where I was very critical of them, and rightly so. They were so bad. And now, I wouldn't want to play them right now. They can beat anybody right now. They're just tough. LSU had nothing to lose in that game, and what a mess that is on their offense and everything. I know they're in interim coach mode right now, but LSU is just a mess.
Yeah. I would say 2 things. One, I think Indiana's getting largely respect, and they're really good. I want to, real quick though, I want to go back to this deal, because Miami, Notre Dame, if you have the head-to-head tiebreaker, the way that's supposed to work is when teams are similar, you're supposed to apply the head-to-head as a tiebreaker. So what the committee's telling us is they don't think those teams are similar, despite the same record, despite the fact that, and frankly, Miami has better wins, including Notre Dame, than Notre Dame has. Notre Dame doesn't even have a great win. They're hoping USC keeps winning. But they're saying to you, we just think Notre Dame's flat better. We're never going to get to the head-to-head tiebreaker. We don't have to apply it. That's what they're saying. And I don't know how they get to that. How could you not at least see them as similar teams at this point? That's my issue. Now, let me say one other thing. Yeah, this is why they do these rankings right now, because people like us and fans, we will talk about it. I wish they didn't, because I think they end up locking themselves into things when they shouldn't be, because we're still 2/3 or 3/4 the way through. I guess we're 3/4 the way through the season. There's a lot of football left to be played, and teams are going to do some things. But if you've now slotted them into rankings, even if you come in every week supposedly with a clean sheet, you know what you did last week. You know where they ended up ranked when you and your 12 compadres, the 13 of you, put them together last week. You know how this worked. So how's this? You've locked them in, and why does that make you any different than the AP poll or the coaches poll? And I know it's different because these guys are really watching, they're really paying attention, and then they're discussing things in a room. I get that part, but in the locking them in type of stuff, you're the same. Lock them into slots.
Yeah, and I think Notre Dame is a very good football team. I think they're a top 12 team in the country right now. I think CJ Carr is definitely much better than he was the first game of the season against Miami. Like, he's a different quarterback now, and they got a really high future. They got to make sure they spend the money to keep him around, for his entire tenure at Notre Dame. But body of work has to matter for every single team. Body of work has to matter. Also, what a Texas Tech, what a showing they had.
Yeah.
Texas, they looked the part. Their defense is legit.
That's the thing. And people want to take shots at them because they went out and bought themselves a defense, specifically spent $7 million to bring in guys on a defensive line that is really good. That is a defensive front that is real good.
But aren't you supposed to do that now?
Yes.
That's the game now.
Here's the deal. Let's be honest. We've had people doing that for years and years and years before it was legal. And look, nobody said anything when Ohio State went out and retained all their guys last year who could have gone pro and said, no, hey, we'll give you whatever millions of dollars, and spent a ton of money. Not Texas Tech money, but not Texas Tech money this year, but what Ohio spent last year raised eyebrows. But it's Ohio State. It's like no big deal. It's when it's somebody who's not supposed to be one. It's not a traditional helmet, whatever, that you're like, you go off on them and you go, they bought themselves a team. Well, sure. That's what you guys are doing too. They've got several oil billionaires.
They're supposed to do that now.
They've got several boosters who are oil billionaires. They're sitting on this giant patch of oil, and they're putting it to what they think is good use. It's their money. So they're spending some crazy amount of money, $49 million or something like that, because they were doing it before the rev share cap comes in, if that holds. And people are going to criticize him for that. You wouldn't criticize him if it was Ohio State or Alabama or LSU or somebody that
Yeah.
you're
Or if it
used to
was just
seeing
your
that from.
team.
This
If it
is true
was your
too.
team, people would be all through it. And to me, what's I think is impressive is Texas Tech is actually living up to their offseason work. What they did. I mean, they could be a Colorado, with all the hype and bringing in players, but here's Texas Tech. They're actually winning and they're playing good football. And I mean, with the defense they're playing right now, I mean, I think they have a chance to win a playoff game.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, the defense is the thing. Their offense is underwhelming. Now, let me just say this. It was BYU. They dominated BYU all day. They really did. BYU's a good football team. BYU, if things fall right, could still get
Yeah.
into the playoff. But it's a very good
And we've
football
heard
team. It
about their
was their first
quarterback all
loss.
year. We hear about
They
their
shut them
quarterback
down.
all year. We hear about
They
him
shut them
all
down.
the time. And he did
Yep.
nothing. Yeah. So to me,
Yep.
Texas Tech did exactly. They went above expectations. So I think they should be very highly regarded right now.
If I was concerned about Texas Tech, if I was concerned about them winning games in the playoff or winning a game or two or three in the playoff or whatever, being a legitimate contender, here's what it would be. Baron Morton's is a fine quarterback. He's banged up. He's come back. He's not very mobile, and I'm not sure he's a difference maker at the level you need. That said, the fact that I'm nitpicking them tells you I think they've got a real shot. Because if otherwise you're just like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Now, staying in Texas, do you think Baylor's going to make a change at the end of the season?
I think that every week I have a different opinion on what they're going to do with Dave Aranda. So they were off this week, which Baylor fans count as a W, and they're 5-4, but they were 4-2 at one point. So they've got Utah, a ranked Utah team, coming in this week, and if they lose that game and they're 5-5, you're going to see those things come back up. That just the talk about Aranda again. This is a bad time to be a Baylor and decide to make a change. And they may have to, but the glut of jobs on the market make it a bad time to be a Baylor and want to make a change. Because who are you going to hire? Because everybody else is hiring too.
Yep. Oh, you got to go find a coordinator probably, and so to me, staying in the state of Texas, in College Station, we got a legit team.
That's
I mean,
right.
the Aggies are tough. I mean, their schedule outside of Notre Dame has been pretty easy. It's so funny to go SEC schedule. Well, all SEC schedules are not the same. They've played really bad teams. But to go play Missouri, who I don't think is elite, but they're at least a good football team, and just to pretty much walk away a pretty easy win, I think you're looking at a great team with Mike Elko. And I know Texas A&M is top of the chain when it comes to finances and as a program and booster money, but I wonder if someone tries to take Elko. I wonder if that might happen because he's the real deal. Won it deep, won there.
Yeah, but where would you go? And obviously it's the jobs that are open. LSU, I mean, you're at Texas A&M. You don't you're sitting in the middle of your own recruiting hotbed. They can spend at least as much money or more anytime than LSU can. I don't think so. I don't think so. But let me say this: they're ranked third in the CFP. I don't have any issue with 1, 2, and 3. You could put them in a hat. But I think Ohio State has just done what you want them to do. I could make a strong case for Indiana being number 1. They're ranked number 2. A&M's ranked number 3. No, this is as we're talking about last week's, and I assume that'll be very similar this week. By the time some of you guys listen to it Tuesday night, they'll put out a new set of rankings. But for a team that's ranked third in the first CFP ranking, for a team that's been highly ranked here for the last several weeks in the other polls, is it possible that Texas A&M is flying a little under the radar because they're not named Alabama, they're not named Texas, for example, which has gotten a lot of attention, even though it has underwhelmed. They're not Georgia, they're not Ohio State, they're not Oregon in terms of what people are talking about. I think Texas A&M could win the whole thing. Is what I'm trying to get to.
I do too. And they don't only have that marquee game outside of really early against Notre Dame. They were a messed up hold or snap. It was a special teams error away from losing that game. But so I think maybe that's part of it too. Or there's just always they're a team that's always hyped every year, and maybe we just kind of have a little Aggies hype fatigue. That is a good football team, and I think they can win the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to. I think they can.
Yeah, so defense, which, for a lot of years was the Aggies' calling card. It's clearly Mike Elko's calling card. And then...
Yeah, the wrecking crew.
Here's the thing, though. Marcel Reed, that guy can flat play quarterback. He's very athletic, can run, but he can really, really throw the football. And where I was sort of saying I don't think Baron Morton is necessarily the difference maker type of guy, Marcel Reed is exactly that kind of guy. I like everything.
And that is the hesitation. And that is the Texas Tech hesitation. You were right about that. I'm not saying you have to have a number one pick overall quarterback to win the national championship, but you usually have to have a pretty, stellar quarterback. So that is the one thing about Texas Tech that could hold them up. But Texas A&M absolutely checks that box, and they're probably going to get a really good if they keep winning. I mean, who's left? I have Texas, of course, left, but I think they have a pretty decent road, so they have a chance to get a really high seed, especially if they win in Atlanta in the SEC championship game.
All right, I know you don't like Texas, and I don't want us. This is not just a state of Texas centric podcast. We got a couple other places to go here in a second. I know that you took issue a few minutes ago with Texas being ranked as high as it is in the CFP. What is it, 11 or 12 now?
Yes, get them out of my face officially.
Okay, they're ranked 11th in the initial college football playoff. They were idle this week. They were off, meaning in week 11. Okay, and so, but here's my question. They have begun to play a little bit better. They have one really good win that you would describe, and they need Oklahoma to continue to win to make that a good win. But it was a dominant performance, and but that game around Thanksgiving with A&M is a chance for. I mean, Texas has every reason to think they're right in the middle of the playoff mix, despite the fact of being what I would say is underwhelming. Despite the fact that they could have lost another game or two and didn't play very well, went to overtime against two teams they shouldn't have. They've got every chance to get to where they want to go. And they really, I know they let Vanderbilt come almost all the way back a week ago, but they got out to a big lead on Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt is good, as we have talked about before. I'm trying to make a little bit of a case that Arch Manning has gotten better. Texas's defense is really good, and I think they have a shot. Their offensive line is getting a little bit better as they gain some experience. I think they've at least got a shot in that game against Texas A&M. And if they finish 10-2, regardless of what they do in terms of getting to the SEC title game or not, they're going to be in the playoff, whether they should be or not.
Well, wouldn't that 10 wins include a win versus Georgia? So I think they played Georgia, right? They have Georgia and the Aggies left.
No, they got Georgia this week.
I think that's
so
right.
What I'm saying is they've got to keep winning.
Yeah.
And the road is harder.
If they win
at the
that,
end.
I'm in. If they beat Georgia and Texas A&M, then I'm in.
I'm trying to make a case that they've got a shot.
Yeah, you're totally right. They have a shot. Oh, no doubt.
All right, let's talk real quick about Oregon. In the rain in Iowa City, and everybody was acting like it's a cold rain. I don't know how they can play it. Do you guys know what happens in Eugene this time of year? It rains. It's not quite as cold as it usually is in Iowa. But
don't
it rains.
know, George. They live in the South. They have no idea. They think Oregon's in a different country.
It rains. The popular thing for the PA announcer at Autzen Stadium in Eugene to say is, it never rains at Autzen Stadium. He says that right at the beginning of each game. And what's funny about that, and everybody kind of funny, haha, is it's typically raining when he says it. They play in the rain. They practice in the rain. That wasn't a thing. Their problem the other night was Iowa's a good football team. Iowa's better than they've been in recent years, even offensively, but they're definitely good. They're Iowa good defensively, like they have been. And they really slowed Oregon down.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a really good win. That is a really good win against a good team that's now 6-3. Iowa's not in the playoff mix anymore. I'm not sure they should have been, but that's a good team. You go on the road and it's a snake pit. It's the same in almost any conference, especially when it's a good opponent. And all they did was out Iowa. They ran the ball right up the middle. They ran the ball. They averaged 7 yards a run against an Iowa team that came in highly ranked in rushing defense. And they didn't throw the ball well. Dante Moore did not have a good throwing game. In fact, it wasn't until he threw the dime on the very important pass in the last 30 seconds that got them into field goal range. It was a better catch, but it was a great throw. That got him over 100 yards passing for the night. But they ran the football, and they played a very Iowa, very Big Ten game, and they just went and won it. And what do you normally think about Oregon? Flash and dash and sizzle and uniforms. And they definitely have all that. But this team, the way this program has been constructed, and this team with Dan Lanning, they're really good along both lines, and they like to play physical football. And I think it's a really good Oregon team. I know they lost to Indiana, but I think they're really good. And so I think the Big Ten now has 3 teams that, unless they just blow themselves up, Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon are going to be in the playoff. I really think that. Now, they got to go win some games, but nobody else
all should be. I mean, going to play that Iowa team in those conditions on the road, that's a significant win. And in a playoff era, sometimes it is survive. And what Oregon's showing is that they're not a one-dimensional, one style of football team. And in the playoffs, you might have to all of a sudden buckle up your chin strap and go hit somebody. It might not be an all-flash game. You just never know who you're going to play, who you can get matched up with, and how they're going to come at you. I'm a big Lanning guy. I love Lanning, and I think that they're going to be definitely a force in the postseason for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And just a quick thing. So they've got Minnesota at home on Friday night. And then the week after that, team that we're not talking about at all. And I'm not, but the record is good. And I think they're a little bit better than they've been in the last couple of years. USC comes to Autzen on the.
USC could win that.
Absolutely could win that. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to, after that, so that's November 22nd. So when we record November 23rd, Sunday, November 23rd, God willing, I will have returned from watching that game in person with my older son, George. We're going to go to Eugene and see the Ducks play USC, and I'm excited about it. So I'll give you my in-person thoughts on that after that, and we'll see if they're still in the playoff mix. But they looked really good. Indiana looked really good too. You were right when you said Penn State. It doesn't matter that they're, whatever they are, 3-5, 3-6 now. They loaded up. They played up almost up to the talent level you thought they had, except for the fact that Aller is out for the season at quarterback. And they had Indiana on the ropes. And the key there is you're in a place with 105,000 fans. They got you on the ropes. They score with 5 or 6 minutes left to take the lead. And in the last minute, you go down and you win the game. That's a really good team and a great win for Indiana. And I'm a believer in Indiana, and I wasn't a year ago. I thought they should be in the playoff, but I wasn't a believer. I wasn't sure what to think this year, but they've been to Autzen and beaten that Oregon team we just talked about. They've just passed this test. These are the games you lose when you have a lesser team, and they're still unbeaten. They're not. They're 10-0. I said they were 9-0. I guess maybe they're, I don't know, are they 9-0 and 10-0? I got to look that up, but they're unbeaten. They're really good. Let's see.
How about Omar Cooper's catch to win the game? I mean, that might have been the most significant big play in college football this season. I mean, what a play for that to happen. Unbelievable.
I don't know what his shoe size is, probably like a 12. If his shoe size was 10, he doesn't get his foot down, doesn't get out of bounds, doesn't get that toe down.
Yeah, it might be a play of the year in terms of significance that comes. There might have been some crazier catches this year, of course, but in terms of significance that comes with the footwork that he did, and also Mendoza, what a clutch quarterback. I mean, he's my Heisman number one right now. I know Sayan's getting some love. I think he's great, but but Mendoza's my number one right now.
Well, it might come down to those two guys, and if it does, it'll be Mendoza. I think. Obviously, there's more time to shine or not, but at this point, if you were going to do the Heisman, he'd be the guy. All right, we've talked about a bunch of these guys in the top 4 or 5 games. Is there a team from a little bit off the radar that you see? Hey, I think this team could end up in the playoff. We're not talking about them yet. We're not talking about them right now.
Well, the ACC is a big mystery, right? I mean, Miami's ranked number 16th in the Coaches Poll today, and is like 5th or 6th place in the ACC because there's so many teams with one loss in conference. So Virginia has technically 2 losses, but their loss to NC State at the opening of the season does not count as a conference game, which is just dumb. But we don't even want to get into all that. But that's its own thing. But they lost to Wake Forest, who's not great. Their record's not terrible. They're not a great team. And then Cal beat Louisville in overtime. And Louisville's number 15, I believe. So there's just a little interesting shakeup. And Duke, of all teams, who's 5-5 or 5-4, is still a contender because they only have 1 loss, like in the ACC. And so I think those teams are it's just what's going to happen there. It's interesting to me. The other thing is how many Big 12 teams are going to get in. Now, there's a Big 12 guy who's the chairman of the committee. Never underestimate that. In all college sports, that's a thing. When you're guys on the committee,
yeah,
it is one of those things. So don't underestimate that. So I would not be surprised if they try to figure out a way to get 3 Big 12 teams into the playoff.
No,
I guess that
Dean.
watch out for Utah to get in. I'm telling you.
No, man,
watch out for Utah getting snuck in there.
No,
that's going to depend on what happens at BYU and those. So you think if Utah wins out and BYU wins out, that they're not going to take 3 teams?
Yes, I think they're not going to take 3 teams. I think they'll take
good.
2.
Good.
And here's what I think. I think the question now is, does the ACC get 2 or does the Big 12 get 2? And the SEC is going to gobble up a ton of them. But I think the Big 10 had a tough. If they wanted to get more than 3 in, things didn't work out great for them because of the Iowa loss and the Washington loss to Wisconsin sort of knocked them down to really only having the three that are near the top of the polls, Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. But I think you're really looking at, will the ACC get two in? And that's a tougher path. Or will the Big 12 get two in? And the three from the Big 12 that could be the part of the two are Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah. And how does that work? The cleanest path would be for BYU and Texas Tech to find their way into the title game, and then for BYU to play much better and barely beat Texas Tech. And then Texas Tech would have two losses, but I think they would probably still get in. I think they've got some they've got some respect, and then they'd probably both get in. It's harder for me to see Utah getting in unless they win get into the title game and win it. And I guess at that point, maybe Texas Tech.
You're in Big 12 country.
That's
you're
what
in
I
Big
think.
12 country more. So I trust you with that.
Here's my issue with the ACC. The only real way that is if Georgia Tech were to have impressive win against Georgia and not win the ACC, then I could see Georgia Tech is getting in and then the ACC champion gets in. That's how you get two in through the ACC. Miami should be much more highly ranked than it is, but the way they've got Miami sitting right now, it makes it hard to figure out how they're gonna jump a bunch of these other teams with similar records that are already ahead of them. Now,
people have
some
to
of them
lose.
are playing.
People have to lose.
And some of them are going to. Texas is playing Georgia. U is playing at Alabama this week, right? And then has LSU too. Texas is going to play host to A&M. So there's more losses on the schedule potentially for those type of teams that are ahead of them. But some of the other teams maybe won't lose again. And you're sitting there at 18th. So I think the ACC has a really weird, tough path to get two in this year.
It's a weird year there, yeah. And some teams that I think are like in the middle of the playoff rankings. I mean, they're in, but I think aren't really being talked about a lot. Is I think Ole Miss has a chance to do some damage.
Yeah,
they have talent. And they're obviously very well coached, so they're not getting talked about a lot. Even though they had that win against Oklahoma, and they absolutely had Georgia. So credit to Georgia for winning that game. We talked about that, on an episode back when that happened. So I think they're in the ballpark. Tennessee's still ranked with 3 losses, even though their biggest win is Mississippi State in overtime. So apparently that's significant.
Tennessee's not getting in. Tennessee's not getting in. I'm just telling you.
No, they better not. Their biggest win is Mississippi State, and their second biggest win is Arkansas. Yet they're still ranked. So whatever. But and also in the group of five, what are you thinking?
Well, Memphis hurt itself or got hurt. So I look. I don't have the first clue. I assume it's whoever comes out on top of the American still. I don't know who that's going to be.
The winner of that goes.
I guess there's at least a little bit of it. I think so. There's at least a little bit of a sliver of hope for somebody else, like a James Madison or somebody, but I think it's coming out of the American.
Yeah.
This is one
James
of the
Madison
years,
is
too.
a good sliver of hope team.
So one of the interesting things about the top 25 that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee put out was they didn't rank anybody from outside the Power 4 leagues. In this, usually I'd be like, that is a startlingly bad omission. But this year, I'm not sure that was wrong. And so what they said was they had a little note, like a footnote that said Memphis would have been the automatic qualifier if the playoff were today from as the highest ranked. We figured they'd be the highest ranked conference, champion, the highest ranked, the fifth, whatever, from the group of 6 or whatever we're calling it now. And so with Memphis's loss, I don't know who it's going to be, but this is one of the weird years where if you're in one of those Power 4 leagues and you don't get one of your teams in, the ACC thinks it should get a second team in, or the Big 12 thinks it should get a second team in, or the SEC thinks it should get all its teams in, and you don't get one in because some team from the American that can't even get into the top 25 gets in. This is the year you might have a case that they really didn't deserve to be in. But I still like the fact that they've got it set up to where the top 5 conference champions in their rankings get in. They get in. They're not getting automatic. They're not getting buys, but they're getting in now. And I still like that. But this is the year you might have that argument, and you might have the winning side of that. So, all right, this week's games.
Just make sure you remember for me. Wait, one more thing. Make sure you remember for me that the USF Bulls have a win versus the Florida Gators, and the Texas Longhorns do not. I had to throw that in.
The SEC fans will not be listening to that, and the SEC promoters, as the playoff speculation gets hotter and hotter, are not going to be bringing that data point up. So this week's games, there's several good ones. 2 of them in the SEC. Oklahoma at Alabama is a really potentially a good game. We'll find out if Oklahoma's for real.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Huge.
If Oklahoma wins that game, then you've got to go, okay, they're they're firmly in the playoff chase. If not, it's still can be a nice season, but but they're not a playoff worthy, they're not going to be in the playoff. Alabama has
Huge
looked
game for
really
them.
good. I thought Alabama maybe didn't look as good as it has looked in recent weeks, but they dominated LSU. And then Texas at Georgia. You mentioned it earlier. Texas at Georgia. If Texas wants to be all the way back in and wants to wipe all of those bad feelings and thoughts about them being out the door, if you just want to wipe all those away, go win at Georgia between the hedges.
Yeah.
If you can do that, we'll be past
I'm
all
in.
this stuff.
I'm in. I'm hook 'em horns. They can beat Georgia and beat Texas A&M. I'm hook 'em horns.
All right. Iowa is at USC. I know Iowa just lost. I don't expect a ton from them, but we are completely not paying any attention to USC. And maybe that's the right thing to do. But if there's
if
Go
they
ahead.
beat Oregon, oh buddy.
Yeah. Let me just put it this way. If they were to keep winning, and that includes a win at Austin, then that might be the path to get another Big Ten team in, or at least to swap them out for Oregon. You could do that too. So Lincoln Riley might not be finished. His crew still has some of the same issues they've had in the past, but those are some of the games this week that I'm really kind of looking forward to. Now, there's going to be some more down the road here, but those are the ones that I'm looking forward to, I think, the most this week. Anything you're looking forward to?
So I am very much that Oklahoma Alabama game really interests me. One, I love the two historic programs, the blue blood, kind of game. So I'll just enjoy that in general. But that game to me just really is, Oklahoma has everything, on the line there for that game. And then also Texas. I mean, again, another cool matchup. Just if you just love college football, the fact that Texas and Georgia are playing in a regular season game. I know that's the new normal, because they're in the same conference, but we're still kind of getting used to that, which is sort of a new thing. Now, I am paying attention just as a fan. A couple games I'm paying attention to is I want to see if Clemson can knock Louisville out, because that would be their third loss, and keep them, basically have them out of the ACC, championship game running. So I'm interested in that. And then Notre Dame Pitt is I'm really excited about. Talk again about two historic programs. I don't think the average person my age, because I haven't had a ton of recent success, understands the historic traditional significance of Pitt's program and how they were a historic power for a very long time. So Pitt versus Notre Dame is really significant to me as well. So I look forward to that one. And then as then Iowa USC, two completely different contrasting styles of football. And then Florida Ole Miss can somehow, Florida got destroyed by Kentucky. Can they, with an interim coach, kind of muster up an upset? No, they can't, but could at least make kind of a fun game. Maybe. I doubt it, but we'll see. And then because I'm paying attention to the playoffs again, I want to see Baylor upset Utah, which I think actually is possible. So those are kind of some things I'm on. Man, also TCU can beat BYU.
Maybe they can. I don't know. Real quick note on this. You recall when Kentucky couldn't beat Florida for anything, and part of it was because Florida was Florida and Kentucky was Kentucky. There was a 31-year or game win streak. Well, since then, Kentucky's 5-3 against Florida. And
Mark Stoops.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is this is not a good year for Kentucky fans to hit, push the ejection seat button for Mark Stoops because of all the other coaching openings. But wins like this sort of cement his status as staying too. He's doing just enough to stay.
Field after him.
Yeah. So, all right. One more thing.
It's Rich Brooks Field.
It is Rich Brooks Field. Yeah. One more real quick thing. In your own town, the team lost again. Clemson got right at Florida State's expense. Dabo was happy. And I kind of wondered if today, and we're recording Sunday night, if today we might be talking about yet another coaching move. But What's the mood and what are your thoughts on what's going to happen there at Florida State?
I'm careful because I'm, friends with people that are very involved and that's livelihoods depend on this, so I'm a little more sensitive about it, just being a pastor.
Well, it's people's lives, like we've said before. Yeah.
Yeah. But like the word on the street is everyone's going back to the buyout being too much for Florida State to afford. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what people are saying. All these programs seem to miraculously be able to find the money when they want to. So I don't know if it's gonna be a mid-season thing next year because the buyout will go down. Let them they play Alabama pretty early in the season next year, and see I really, but the vibe is just that they're just really bad, and nothing's working, but the coaches will tell you they're still working hard and doing everything else. It's just
Oh,
not
yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
not clicking. I don't know what it is. I mean, that game felt worse than the score last night against Clemson. Even though Florida State had a few moments where they had some 3-and-outs against Clemson, and Clemson's offense is not very good, which is so strange with the talent they have. But the vibe here is the answer everyone gives you is they can't afford the buyout. So that's the conversation in town. And if
All
they
right.
were able to afford the buyout, that a change probably would have happened after the Stanford game a couple weeks ago. I don't know.
So I'm never going to buy that again. The final score was Clemson 24, Florida State 10. I'm never going to buy that again because people are finding the money, or they don't even know how they're going to
Yeah.
get the money. They're just feeling the pressure to do it, and then they'll come up with the money, right? They're firing the coach on
Yeah,
credit,
we
right?
see that over and over again. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, lots of stuff to talk about. Hard to believe that this weekend will be week 12, and it is a little discouraging, but
Don't
it's
say that
also
so loud. Don't say that so loud.
it's a fun time of year, man. November football is great, and we'll see where it goes from here. So let's take a break. On the other side, we'll come back and we'll talk about our favorite topic, which is our shared faith in Christ. We'll be right back right after this. And welcome back to the second half of Gridiron the Gospel, a faith and college football podcast. This is the faith side. We talked all about college football here. I'm George Schroeder. He's Dean Ansara. He's the lead pastor of City Church in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm the lead pastor of First Baptist Church of Fairfield, Texas. And man, we love football, but we love Jesus because he first loved us. And that's why we do this. And so, Dean, I know your church is studying Colossians, and you've got
Yeah.
a couple thoughts here for us tonight.
Yeah, what a great book. And for our listeners, if you just want to, a little direction on what to read in your Bible, it's 4 chapters. Just sit down, and read Colossians in one setting if you can. It'd be a great, be worth your time. It's such a rich letter. I was doing just kind of your classic dad bedtime prayers with my 2-year-old. And we have definitely an interesting wide range of kids, my wife and I. We have a 19-year-old who's a freshman at Liberty University. We have a 9th grader in high school. We have a 6th grader, and we have a 2-year-old. So we had a little surprise in our house. So it was quite the news. Things are great, and she's great. But I was just doing your classic, read her story, put her to bed, and always pray at the end before we, turn off the light and say goodnight to her. And we kind of, based on the schedule, kind of depends on who's putting her to bed. My wife does most of the time, but I usually do a couple of days a week. And so I was put her down and we prayed. It's just very basic prayer, just kind of childlike faith prayer. I pray with her, just thanking God for loving us. And we pray for her friends that she has a good night's sleep and those type of things. After I said amen, she says, I don't see God. Like, I don't see him. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I can't see God. And 2 years old saying that. And she's right. She physically
right.
can't, so I'm like, how do I navigate through this conversation with a 2-year-old? And I didn't really know I didn't really know what to say that had the greatest answer in the world. But I said but one thing popped in my head. I said, it's okay. I said, because he can see you.
That's right.
And now, one, that might sound a little scary and keep her up all night, but there is
turn the light on in the closet for her.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there is a healthy fear of God that we understand that I might not see your sin, George, and you might not see mine, but God sees it, and that should matter to us. But from a suffering standpoint, which is where we were in Colossians today, the second half of chapter 1 is in the beginning of chapter 2. And I said, here's what you need to know in your suffering. You might not be able to see God in it right now. None of the cliches are working. People say to you, and the things like when God opens a door, he closes a window, and God won't give you more than you can handle, and all the things people like to say with good intentions, but aren't helpful because they're not in the Bible either.
Not even really true. Yeah. He does give you more than you can handle.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah,
completely. Him. Exactly. He won't give us more than he can handle. And so I said, but know that you might not see God, but he sees you. He does. And not only that, Jesus suffered for you and suffers with you. And so I hope you're encouraged by that today. That is, the Bible doesn't downplay suffering, doesn't try to make it sound like it's not that bad. You see Paul with anguish, see the psalmist with anguish often. But you might not see God in this, but he sees you, and he's doing something bigger than yourself and your suffering. And we need to make sure we believe that together as believers. So it's from the mouth of a 2-year-old. I can't see God. She's right. But you know what? God sees her. And God sees all of us, and that's from my heart today. Just so everybody knows, I want people to know that God sees you.
He sees you, and it makes me think of Jesus when he was in his earthly ministry, 3 years of ministry, right? And all these crowds, he saw crowds. We've talked about this before, but he saw not just a crowd. It's like imagine yourself at your favorite team's football stadium. and all you see is a crowd. And if you're going through the corridors and you're trying to wade through the crowd to get to, to buy a hot dog or go to the bathroom or just get to your seat and you can't get there, all you see is a crowd. He saw the individual people, and he saw their hurts, and he saw their hearts, he saw their deepest needs, and he sees your hurts and your hearts, your heart and your deepest needs. He sees you. You don't see him, but he sees you, and he cares for you, right? He's compassionate. Like a father has compassion for his children, as Psalm 103 says, so the Lord has compassion for us. And so when he
Yeah.
saw those
And this,
crowds, he
and
felt compassion for them. Go ahead.
yeah, and today was observed across the evangelical world as Orphan Sunday, where we acknowledge that we're recording on a Sunday, just a reminder. And Orphan Sunday, we highlight some of our foster families and adoptive families and pray for them and just thank God for them and try to encourage them. But earthly adoption points us to a greater adoption, which is
That's
God's
right.
adoption of us as his sons and daughters, that spiritual adoption. Yeah, and that God who's adopted you into his family, he calls himself and allows you to call him Father forever. We become, we're all God's offspring because he created us. We become his children through adoption, through the blood of Christ. And God becomes our Father and we become his sons and daughters. So just know you're cared for and he sees you. And we just need to be reminded of that over and over again in a world where there's a lot of fighting, a lot of chaos, a lot of infighting amongst Christians. Sometimes take a deep breath and go, you know what? God sees you. He's adopted you into his family. He loves you as his own. So what an awesome thing to remember.
No, that's exactly right. And it's, what is it? See what love the Father great love the Father has given us, has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. Can you imagine what that means to
Yeah.
be
What a
adopted
verse.
into his family? And then it goes on to say, and that's what we are.
That's
We're
what we
children
are.
of God.
Yeah. That's what we
If
are.
you are in
And that's who we are.
Christ,
Both.
you are God's child.
Mhm.
Let me stop. Let me go
It'll never
back
be
up
taken
once.
away. It'll never be taken away.
Yeah. Let me back up one step. Sometimes you'll hear somebody, a celebrity on TV or somebody say, we're all God's children. And I know what they're trying to
Yeah.
say. And they're
We're all his
in
offspring. We're not all his
in a
children. Yeah.
sense, they're right. But to be God's child, you have to have come to faith in Christ. And if you've come to faith in Christ, you have been adopted. He's opened your heart to him. You've been saved. You are his child. The same way, Dean, you care for your 2-year-old, I care for my kids. The same way y'all care for your kids, he cares for us more than that, even more than we do, because he adopted. Man, you and I both know people who have adopted children. That picture of adopting a child, and that, especially when you know those families and you've seen how they just love those kids the same way they love the ones that sort of are the natural born members of their family. That's the picture, though, of being adopted and just embraced into a family. So I don't even know how we got there,
Awesome.
but I love it.
Man, no,
So
that was a good segment of faith for us to talk about. I'm glad we talked about that.
for
I mean,
sure.
I think we can say amen to it and just thank
For
God
sure.
for it
No,
and encourage our
absolutely.
listeners with that.
And
Yeah.
absolutely. And the only thing I would say is this: if you would like to know more about this faith in Christ, whatever this is we're talking about, would you email us at gridirongospelpod@gmail.com? You can reach out on Twitter at George Schroeder or at Dean N. Sarah or at gridiron_gospel. And we'll get back to you. We like to talk football. You can ask us about that. But we want to talk with you about Jesus. And we want to share how you can come to faith in him and share the faith that we have in him. And it's imperative and essential that you do. So we want to do that. So reach out on Twitter, reach out on Gridiron the Gospel or gridirongospelpod@gmail.com. And we'd love to talk with you. So, hey, you can find us on YouTube if you just search for Gridiron and the Gospel. And if you have found us on YouTube, understand I'm not usually going to be in a back bedroom with a fan spinning over my head, but you can find us there or on all the major podcasting platforms. You're probably listening to us on one of those. Do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe. That really helps. And if you want, you can also follow links on the show website, which is gridironandthegospel.com. And whatever you do, please tune in next week for more Gridiron and the Gospel, a faith and college football podcast.